seems to be suppressing ideas that are either inconvenient to the narrative or that which they personally disagree with. And you think about some of the things that are in the news just most recently. Of the last however many decades, some of the major issues that we've had to deal with, I would say two of the major issues when people look back on this period will be the efficacy of coronavirus lockdowns and the origin of the coronavirus in Wuhan, China. Now we have information that this very well may have emanated from the Wuhan lab, that it was a leak from the lab. But you remember when people last year were raising that as something that needed to be investigated, they were deplatformed for talking about the lab leak. They were censored for having said that, and now even Fauci admits that this may be something that very well is the case. Are they going to now censor Fauci and pull him down off social media? So this shows you, because corporate media said it was a conspiracy theory at the outset, these big tech oligarchs responded to that, pulled down, instead of having an honest debate about something that's very, very important. Clearly, it's going to affect our relationship with China if this was something that leaked from a lab and they immediately covered it up. We know they did cover up regardless, but certainly from that very beginning, it's a crucial, crucial thing for the American people to know. Big tech, they wanted to shut down debate over that. You also go back to March, April of 2020. Anyone posting criticisms of lockdowns, those things were taken down. They were censored. But now we stand here and look at Florida. We're open and people flock here because they understand it's better to live in freedom. The places that locked down and followed those policies that were basically advocated by Silicon Valley, they've had a lot of problems: high unemployment, high crime, higher per capita COVID mortality. The list goes on and on. So these are major, major issues. And I would say those lockdowns have ruined millions of people's lives all around this country. Wouldn't it have been good to have a full debate on that in our public square? But that was not what Silicon Valley wanted to do. So this is a big problem, and we don't even need to get into the election interference that we see from Silicon Valley on major issues that deserve robust debate. Silicon Valley is acting as a council of censors. They cancel people. When mobs come after somebody, they will pull them down. They shadow ban people, which creates partisan echo chambers. And honestly, they are some of the major reasons why this country is divided for doing what they're doing. And the worst part about this, Silicon Valley thinks they know better than you. So their power up to this point has effectively been unchecked. And they have used this power in Silicon Valley to impose their orthodoxies and their ideologies on our public square. This is not how a free society should operate. They use secret algorithms and shadow banning to shape debates and control the flow of information, but yet they evade accountability by claiming they're just neutral platforms, even as they amplify partisan agendas and censor dissent. So every day they act as the proverbial big brother. In 2021 looks an awful lot like the fictitious 1984. So it's time to step up and ensure that we, the people, especially our everyday Floridians, are guaranteed protection against the Silicon Valley power grab. With the reform we will sign in today, we'll be the first state to hold big tech accountable so that everyday people who use their platforms have an ability to fight back. And the protection should not simply be something that is reserved for celebrities or for political office holders. It needs to apply to everyday Floridians. And what this reform does is recognize that social media platforms are as important for conveying public opinions. They're effectively a common carrier in everyday society, and they really need to be viewed that way. They also hold a unique place in preserving free speech for all Floridians, and these platforms can harm Floridians when they unfairly censor, ban, and deplatform them. So this reform gives every Floridian the power to fight back against big tech. Floridians who are deplatformed will be able to sue big tech companies for violating this law. courts may award up to $100,000 in damages for each proven claim. These protections aren't just for elite, but for everyday people, millions of people who rely on social media to keep up with the news, do business, and stay connected with family and friends. We're the first state to hold these big tech companies to this standard of transparency and accountability. The law requires the platforms to publish detailed standards explaining how they decide which voices to censor, and they need to apply those standards consistently. That's not what happens. You look, they have these standards, they always change it, and if you're on one side, it seems to be any little foot foul, you're gone. And if you're on the right side from their perspective, then you can get away with whatever you want. And so when big tech censors enforce their rules inconsistently to discriminate in favor of the dominant ideology in Silicon Valley, they will be held accountable in the state of Florida. And all Floridians treated unfairly by big tech platforms will have the right to sue companies to violate this law and win damages. The reform safeguards the rights of every Floridian by requiring social media companies to be transparent about their content moderation practices and give users proper notice of changes to those policies. I mean, there's some people that get deplatformed, they don't even know what they're getting deplatformed for. That prevents big tech bureaucrats from, quote, moving the goalpost to censor viewpoints they don't like. But it's not just individuals. The Attorney General under this law of Florida can bring action against tech companies that violate this law under Florida's Deceptive and Unfair Trade Practices Act. If social media platforms are found to have violated antitrust law, they will be restricted from contracting with any public entity. That antitrust violator blacklist imposes real consequences for big tech and for their bottom line. The law also prohibits big tech from deplatforming political candidates for elected office in the state of Florida. The Florida Election Commission will impose fines of $250,000 per day on social media companies that deplatforms any candidate for statewide office, and additional penalties lesser for local offices. Any Floridian.
All right, everybody, before the news now from Fox Head.
Any Floridian can block any candidate they don't want to hear from, and that is a right to belong each citizen. You simply can avert your eyes or not subscribe to what they're doing. But it's not for big tech to be weighing in on these elections and picking the candidates that have the right to speak and those that should be silenced. They're not. Now, if there's an old saying, I think it was Bill Buckey that said he would rather be governed by the first 2,000 names in the Boston phone book than the Harvard faculty. Well, I would say if I had to pick one group of people to not be governed by, it would be the bureaucrats and oligarchs in Silicon Valley. They are not the arbiters of truth. They are not accountable to the electorate. And what we're doing now is empowering Floridians to hold these companies accountable and to give protections for people in terms of their daily lives. And if you think about some of the things that we have seen, when you had the Parler company get taken down, that was like one fell swoop from a bunch of different companies acting basically in concert. They took them off web hosting, they took their payment processing, they took all this stuff down. So just think about it. You run a small business and you have all these different things that impact how you do it. You advertise online, you have a payment processor, you have an email distribution list, all these things. And what if someone in Silicon Valley doesn't like you, then they can work together and just wipe you off. That's people's livelihoods that are at stake. Those are people's businesses and ultimately people's jobs that are at stake. And so I think the implications are profound, and I think the protections we are providing today against big tech censorship will make a difference. And not only that, we're already seeing other states are now starting to follow suit. And so it starts in Florida, but it's not going to end in Florida. And I think we're going to have a huge movement behind us. So I want to thank the legislature. I want to thank a lot of Floridians who have spoken out in favor of making sure that individual Floridians are protected, that we're protected against censorship, that people have the ability to weigh in on these important issues in what has now become a digital public square. I'm going to let some of the legislators come up, legislators who were involved in the bill. We'll also hear from some of our other speakers, and then we'll move on, and I'll put the old John Hancock on the bill, and it will become the law of this state. So first, I want to bring up our Senate, main Senate sponsor from Southwest Florida, Senator Ray Rodriguez.
Good morning. The governor shared that we're the first state to pass this legislation and hold big tech accountable. What he didn't share with you is we weren't the first state to introduce this legislation.